If you could ask a cast member at Disney any question you wanted, what would you ask? So I thought I'd have a little fun and ask some of my viewers and friends and other people on Facebook and YouTube and Reddit and other places, if you could ask a cast member any question at all, what would you ask? And got some very interesting questions. I thought it'd be fun to go ahead and answer some of them. Now, I do want to give you a heads up. There will be a couple of these that are going to break magic just a little bit. And I will give you kind of a heads up on them. I'll save them for the end so you can watch the whole video and not quite have to worry about it if you'd like. But just be aware there are a couple that will come up later on. But had some great questions from viewers. And actually had a couple that kind of made me think about it a little bit. So let's jump in. Jolie Hayen asked, what is your favorite time of year at Disney? Now for me, this is easy. It's Christmas. I love Christmas at Disney. All the parks decorations, the different shows, the candlelight processional, the characters getting costumes. It's just a beautiful time. One of my favorite things that used to be there at Christmas was the Osborne Spectacle of Lights, and that's not there anymore, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to end up playing out. They have lost a couple things that I absolutely loved, but it is still an incredible time of year. I do also like the Mickey's Not So Scary event. That's also really cool, but if I had to pick only one time a year, it would be Christmas. And the best time to go, early part of November before Thanksgiving. The crowds aren't as bad as the rest of the time. Don't go at Christmas week and New Year's. Ugh. Robert Rothenberg asks, are you just as happy as the guests that arrive at the park, or is it all an act? Yes. There are times you are definitely as happy as the guests, and times it's definitely an act. People are human. The cast members are human. They're normal human beings. They come into work sometimes and they've got stuff going on in their lives that aren't real good. They're sick as a dog sometimes and they're out there working because they have to be. There's various things that can make them unhappy, and yet they are out there still trying to put on a smile to make the guests happy. At the same time, you have other times that everything is just going beautifully and you're having an awesome day and you can't help but smile. So just like any other job or any other people, yes, there's times that they're really happy, and yes, there's times that they really aren't, but they're pretending. For me, at least, the vast majority of the time, I really was happy because I loved what I did. I loved who I got to meet. I loved the work I did. For me, it was so much fun. It really was. And so it wasn't hard for me to smile. But that doesn't mean that when I stepped off stage that I didn't kind of relax and let it out and go from the frozen smile to make everybody smile back at me to just relaxing. We joked about it sometimes. As soon as you hit that door to backstage, you'd be like, just to be able to unwind a little bit and be you again instead of performing. Yes, they may be really happy. They may not be, but hopefully you won't know the difference. Haley Coomer asks, is the job of a CM harder than what Disney fans, etc. think? More than likely. I've worked in a number of different jobs. I've worked at a grocery store. I've been a film processor and developer. Yes, back in the days when cameras actually had film, I actually used to develop and print pictures. I've worked, of course, fast food. I've done office jobs. I've been a teacher, which being a teacher is one of the hardest jobs I've ever done. Teachers don't get enough credit for it. And I've done a number of other things as well. Being a cast member at Disney or an employee at any theme park is both physically and emotionally wearing. You're having to deal with weather, with long shifts, generally low pay, people, which not everybody deals with people real well. There can be a lot of technical expertise depending upon what you are doing at the park. It is not a job, like some people seem to think, where you go in and you just play all day and everything's wonderful and they feed you and, you know, it's Disney, it's air conditioning. How can you not be happy? It's a job. And there are things about any job that you are not going to like. You are going to get physically tired. You're going to be hot and sweaty and gross and miserable. You're going to be hungry. After 12 and 14-hour shifts, your feet are going to hurt and you're going to be exhausted. And yes, there are 12 and 14-hour shifts you do at a theme park. That's not unusual. So yes, it can be a lot of hard work, and then you throw in dealing with an irritable guest, and that can be tough sometimes. I still think it was one of the most fun jobs I ever had, but it is still a job, and it is still work. And I do think that a lot of people from outside forget that and don't understand that you do have a job to do. If you are a ride operator, you've got to make sure that all of these systems are working correctly and safely so the guests are safe. And people think, oh, you're just trying to take away my fun. No, they're keeping you safe, because safety is first and then the guest happiness. I would rather have a guest unhappy because I kept them safe than happy and dead. Just me. And so it definitely has its challenges, but at the same time, it's also an extremely rewarding, fun job. So is it harder? Yes. Is it as much fun? Maybe. But it is not just going in and playing for hours and getting free admission to the theme park all day, every day, and getting paid for it. That's not what it is at all, like some people think. A good example, here's a good myth that a lot of Disney fans and theme park fans think about is, on your breaks, hey, don't you just go ride the rides? No, you usually go crash backstage somewhere, get off your feet, try to get some food and water, and just rest for a few minutes because you need it. Manora Lore, and I hope I said your name right, asks, how do you keep from exploding on annoying customers? There are definitely times, thankfully they're rare, but there are times when you have a guest that just manages to push your buttons just right. Yes, they just get you really mad. And it's hard. It is a test in patience sometimes when you work at a theme park, as it is in any job, and especially when you deal with people. People are wonderful, but people sometimes are also very annoying and frustrating. That's the nature of us being imperfect. It happens. And there are times when, yes, you're going to have somebody that just really gets on your nerves and gets you mad. You treat them the same way that you would anybody else in a situation where you can't lose your cool. You learn techniques. As you get older, it does get easier, although it's not ever necessarily easy, I think. You learn how to put the smile on. You learn how to find other alternatives. If it's just dumb, you learn to be able to laugh at them without letting them know that you're laughing at them. Because if you don't laugh, then you get mad. And I've always found that it's much easier to smile if you're laughing, even if you're laughing just on the inside, than it is to smile when you're mad. Because then it turns into a grimace. And you learn just to try to find what you can to deal with them and get them to move on, so that way you can then walk away and take a break. Hopefully you can take a break, even if it's just 2 minutes of going, I'm not going to kill him. I'm not going to kill him. It's one of the reasons why Disney cast members have kind of perfected the art of saying, have a magical day. They don't always say that when they're mad. There's times that they mean it sincerely. But that is kind of the catchphrase, that if you've gotten a cast member mad and they give you that, yeah, that is really them kind of telling you off and get lost. Not always. Again, sometimes it's very gentle. There is this internet myth that the phrase is have a Disney day. That is not the phrase. There are some newer cast members that have picked it up because they've heard it on the internet. But no, the phrase, at least at Disney World, is have a magical day. And you can always tell the people who really haven't worked in the parks or aren't as familiar with them, because they're the ones spouting the have a Disney day thing, and that's not the line. Sorry. But if you ever get told to have a magical day through gritted teeth, yeah, you probably ticked off that cast member. Don't do that. Be nice. They're having to deal with people like you and me all day long. And I don't know about you, but if I had to deal with me all day, I would really get mad a lot. You just learn to laugh with it, kind of go with the flow, figure out what they want, and get rid of them really quick, so that way you can go on to the next guest or take a breather. And that's how you deal with it. Haley Coomer asks, what's the secret behind the cast members being so nice? Is it due to the way how Walt treated his staff in the studios when he would come to Disneyland to visit? Honestly, with Walt having been dead since 1970 or so, I don't think it really has anything to do with Walt anymore. And I actually heard mixed views on how nice Walt was to other cast members. But it is part of the Disney training to always keep a smile on, to always treat the guests as royalty. In fact, when you first start at Disney, you go through a whole class that takes all day called Traditions. Back in the old days, it was actually 2 or 3 days. Now they've got it down to 1. One of the big focuses of that class is guest service. How do you make the guests happy? How do you treat them well? Smile. And it's one of the things that Disney is known for because they put such an emphasis on making the guests happy, keeping the magic, finding ways to help them if there is a problem, and doing what you can. It is a huge emphasis of the Disney company. And yes, you get it in training and traditions. You will get it in training again in your department. But not just that, they also constantly have things to help reinforce it and encourage it. There are employee newsletters that you can get and papers in the backstage area that tell stories of great guest service and great moments and meeting magic and how they help people be happy. If you go into the break rooms, there'll be a TV on that may be showing stories of great things that have happened to guests and giving cast members awards for guest service. There are actually awards that if you do something well and a guest writes a note or another cast member sees you, you can actually get a little award certificate and possibly get a prize or an award of other sorts like that. So there was constant encouragement and feedback to do good for the guests, to make them happy. It's part of the company culture, and that's the best way I can think of to describe it. Maybe not necessarily due to Walt, although Walt did encourage great guest service, but it has been built in the company through decades of it. Maja Wong Rasmussen asks, how much is a child's smile worth? Priceless. Worth everything else and all the terrible parts of the job? That right there, when you see a child's smile, will make it all worth it. That's an easy one. Zach Harris asks, what is the most rewarding aspect of being a Disney cast member? I actually just mentioned it. The child's smile. For all the perks and the pay and the free admissions and all the other nice stuff that goes along with it, for me, when I could see somebody have that magical moment when they would smile, when they light up, when they get to experience something, and you just see the whole expression on their face light up, that to me made everything worth it. That was the magic, and that was why I loved being at Disney. See, those are easy questions. Chandra Sullivan asks, do you have to go to Disney College to work there? I wasn't sure if the college was just for the characters. This is actually a good question because I get asked about Disney University all the time. Disney University, in spite of the name, is really not a real college or university. You don't have to go to it, with the one exception being when you go to Traditions. Traditions is an orientation day that you have, and they call it a class, and it's typically held at Disney University. And you spend the whole day there. From there, your job may or may not have other training groups that also take place at Disney University, but there are training locations at all of the parks, and any job you have training, and you have to get trained to do your job so you can learn how to do it. It will typically involve some days that'll be in the classroom going over what the job is, and then after you get that, then you actually get out into the park and start doing the job. So training is required, but as far as Disney College goes, no. However, they do offer a bunch of extras through what's called the learning program. It can be accounting classes, business classes, language classes, and a number of other things, and they're all extras. They're offered generally free of charge. Sometimes there may be a small charge, and it's an optional thing that you can take if you want to. And those will oftentimes happen over at Disney University. They're all optional, and they're great ways to be able to kind of learn more and grow more and get to try some new things, but absolutely none of them are required. So Disney College, per se, is not required, but job training, which may or may not be at Disney University, of course is. So I hope that answers that one for you. If you got more questions about Disney College, please let me know in the comments. I'd definitely like to be able to answer those a little better for you if you got more details. Super Duper Awesome asks a question that will go behind the magic just a little bit. He asks, is it fun to be a character, and how hot do you get? Also, could you work there and only be a character, or do you switch around with jobs? So this is going, again, behind the magic just a little bit. Characters definitely get hot. I would say the vast majority of them have a lot of fun doing their job too. How could you not have fun making everybody's day and putting smiles on their faces? I know a lot of people that absolutely love being characters. Do they get hot? Especially if they're outdoors. You bet they do. There's actually reasons why their sets, which is the length of time that they're out there, is limited in time, and it will change depending upon the weather. On hot days, for example, fur characters will only be out there for about 20 minutes at a time before they get pulled back off stage to be able to get a break to cool off. And then they'll get maybe another one, or they might come back again a couple minutes later. But they do a rotation so that they're not out there so long that they could actually risk getting dehydrated or sick, assuming that they're drinking their water. So yes, they most definitely get hot in those costumes, especially the fur characters. And it's Florida. You're gonna get hot. It's one of the reasons why a lot of the characters love being inside, because the air conditioning does make it a little bit easier to deal with. So yes, they definitely get hot. Characters generally are only characters, although they may kind of rotate around a little bit. There are times when face characters will be fur characters. Not every fur character becomes a face character, but oftentimes the other way around it does. They may also step out sometimes as character attendants, which are the ones who help the characters and help run the lines and various things like that. So they may do some other jobs, but it basically rotates between face, fur, and character attendant. And then eventually they may become kind of a supervisor over that. But that's kind of their department. They don't rotate out into other areas. Disney areas stay very job specific. Photographers are only photographers. Characters basically stay within characters. Entertainment performers stay within their show. Ride operators are ride operators at specific rides or certain areas and groups of rides. Cashiers will generally work within a certain group of stores. And so you stay within your area and you don't change departments per se, because there's different pay scales and different management and different leaders and different schedulers. And when you've got 55,000 plus employees, and I've heard now it's closer to 70,000, you try to keep everybody compartmentalized so that way you can keep track of who they are and where they are and what they're doing and make sure they're trained. So you don't have a lot of changing jobs that really happens unless you transfer from one job to another and then you only do the new one and you don't do the old anymore. Hope that answers your questions. Thanks so much for all the people who ask questions. There's still more, and so I may answer some of those later as well. If you've got a question that you want to know from a cast member, I'd love to hear it. Leave it in the comments below, and if it's something I can answer, I will. And if I can't answer it, maybe I'll find somebody who can. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this little question and answer time, and hope you got a good kick out of it and learned something new. If you did, don't forget to like the video. Hit that subscribe button as well if you haven't already. Share the video as well with others, and hey, maybe share it with other cast members and see if their answers are different than mine. I'd love to hear them. Thank you so much to my patrons for supporting me. I appreciate it. I couldn't do this without them. My patrons rock. If you want to know more about Patreon and some of the benefits and perks, including occasional early previews, check the link down below. Be sure to check the links as well for my store, my Facebook page, my Reddit, and so much more. There's a ton of info in the description. Check it out. Thank you so much, and God bless. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button right there. If you'd like to see another great video of mine, there's a good one right there for you. And if you'd like to be like these wonderful people and support me on Patreon, hit that link right there. Thanks so much.